I'm Magda Boo. I'm from Public Health Sheffield City Council and I'm representing Group 1. So we started off by looking at what drivers are present in the UK, and we really focused on organised community networks, looking at actors, looking at roles like lobbying and education, policy change, looking at cities that were doing really well at this, like London, Bristol and Birmingham. We said that it was urban cities who tended to be better rather than rural cities, because urban cities were more aware of rural areas surrounded by countryside, whereas urban cities kind of more impacted and more aware of the kind of lack of green space and lack of growing. So we talked about how these things aren't always sustainable. Sometimes they're funding led through things like urban renewal, and that was an issue, and that there were limited human resources, so the same people who were doing urban food growing are the same people who are running the library and doing the food bank and etc., so that could constrain organised community networks. So we then looked at a series of questions. So we looked at what mechanisms for food policy councils there were that were multi-scale, multi-sector and multi-actor. We thought that we could do an action research project where we created a network that was multi-sector, multi-scale and multi-actor, and kind of observed, recorded, produced guidelines, toolkits, case studies of what that looked like. We then kind of moved on and we looked at knowledge and support sets, what knowledge sets are needed, are most efficacious in building self-organised kind of growers, how can we manage conflict, prioritise conflicting, competing priorities and interests in self-organised growing groups.
These are potential research topics.
Research topics, yeah. How to get natural capital valued, but valued as in not monetarised because it's priceless. What kind of planning policy could support green space usage and urban food growing, support, address and steer. What's the differential market value of housing with green infrastructure? How we could explore, that's what we've gone there. And then we skipped over and we went over to this flip chart where we said, actually, we need to flip this and look at this, because one of the issues is that people don't want to eat what we can grow in this country.
We have identified quite precisely also potential partners, for example, for this multi-scale, multi-dimensional. No?
We did. I'll just come on to that in a minute. So we talked about cultural change. What cultural change would be needed for cities to be more self-sufficient in growing food, what the drivers are, so for urban food growing. So is feeding themselves sustainably really, is that really what people are interested in when they're doing growing? We said, well, people are buying food miles, veg boxes, so for some people that will be a driver, but not necessarily for everybody. That some people didn't know how to process food that we can grow in this country and make it into a recognisable food product that they want to eat. And that sometimes it was flagship projects like Incredible Edible Todmorden or the Goldthorpe Community Shop that really kind of organised people, that once they saw something they wanted to replicate it. So we talked about champions like Jamie Oliver trying to get a food growing kind of revolution, and the role of YouTube in that. We briefly talked about food, the economics of food or cheap food, what's the real cost of junk food in health, why do we have food poverty when food's artificially cheap, and how do we properly value food. So then we went on to talk about partners, so a community network obviously, because we're talking about self-organised community growers, a university to provide the kind of research, and then a range of other partners, so private sector partners, food distributors and growers and producers, local authorities, Eurocities, national trusts, national parks. And we thought that the final thing we looked at is if we were going to have kind of 3 exemplars, we might look at people, cities that were fully engaged, like Bristol and Brighton, fully engaged in kind of food growing, knew what they were doing, cities that weren't engaged at all, and cities with a medium level of food growing knowledge.